Welcome to this week's episode of the Power Hour. I, of course, am Steven. We have a new name that came up last week, so let me reintroduce. Welcome to C Red's Power Hour with Steve Arendt in 7K Rion Vision. Although there's a big hole over here, so Rion's not here yet. Introduce the urban sensation, the icon that is C Red. Hello, C Red.
What's going on?
And tonight our guest is the only human being that wears a blue POW jersey that I give a crap about. And this, of course, is one half of the IPA. This is, of course, Meathooks Obannon. And Meathooks, thank you for taking time out of your schedule on a kind of a rocky day to be part of us and to help lift our spirits, because I think you're just the man to do it.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you for having me on, Mr. Arendt and Mr. Red.
Wow.
Much appreciated.
Mr. Arendt, when you say that, I'm looking for my dad, and he's dead, so that doesn't work. But that's neither here nor there. We're going to start this episode. I'm going to give C Red the floor for a moment and let him express his thoughts, and then we'll jump right into it. So, C Red, if you will.
It's very difficult. Tonight's show is dedicated and in honor, in memory of our friend, Jake Henry, J.H. Schmitt. God, I don't know how many.
American royalty, Jake Adams.
Right. I mean, he carried a bunch of personas.
He was a Swiss Army knife. That much is true.
We all got the news yesterday of Jake's passing. It is very difficult tonight to go on. But Jake probably would have wanted us to go on. I can see him now saying, why didn't you do it? Go ahead, do it. So Jake, tonight is about you. And let me just say to anybody that's watching, to anybody that's listening, I said it before, I love you guys. Steve, I love you. Hooks, I love you. It's just hard. And tell the people that you are with and close to that you love them. You never know when it might be the last time. So go ahead, Steve.
As always, C Red makes great points, and every time, and it seems like we were just talking before we started here, that we've been doing this a lot lately, and it's not a trend that I enjoy. It's part of life, it's part of business, it's part of the way things are, but that doesn't make it any easier. So tonight, we're going to try to bring some joy into your evening, even though you don't really want it, but we're going to help you anyway. And we're going to have a very spirited conversation with a very spirited athlete. I've been reticent in having Meathooks on because I'm just not very planful. But I've been following this man's career for quite a while. And, we were talking one time. He's like, hey, how come you never had me on your show? And I couldn't answer the damn question. Why haven't I had you on the show? So here we are. It's the Meathooks Obannon Hour. And brother, thank you for coming on tonight. And we are going to force feed these people a little bit of cheer, because that's what our fallen brother would have wanted. He was an entertainer first and foremost. So tonight, even with heavy hearts, we are going to entertain. And at the end of the show, we will have a special little tribute of our own to Jake, who deserves every bit of it. But for now, Meathooks Obannon, part of the IPA. Now tell everybody a little bit about the IPA. See a lot of gold in all those pictures that I saw of this tag team.
We've had a few title runs in a couple companies. Most currently is our up in Michigan, Eric Freedom's company, UWE. We've held the belts for over 800 days up there.
Wow. 800
So,
days. That's a lot of days.
yeah.
That's like 2.5 years of a lot of days. If you, well, what do you, I figure what, 800 days, we got 365 days. So you're right in the 2-year mark. That's pretty impressive. How often do you get up there? I mean, is this a weekly promotion, a monthly? How often do you get up to defend these titles?
Well, they were monthly, then COVID, and it's up in Michigan, so they got hit pretty hard, and they shut down for a while. But for the most part, now they're every other month. So,
and I bet the fans are just tickled pink that there is wrestling again on a consistent basis, right? A lot of people missed out
very
for
much
such a long time. Let's play it backwards to that very, very cold and cruel March of 2020, when we were all told that the world was going to get put on hold and we went into pandemic protocol and everything that involved the crowd stopped. And I want to say that it was basically over until late August was when we got to do, limited engagement wrestling again. For a guy that's been doing this as long as you, that is part of many promotions, how did you handle the pandemic? What was it like for you?
Oh, well, my work never shut down. My real job. So I was working through the entire pandemic.
As was I. Yep. When you're emergency and public services, it very rarely stops, even when a pandemic hits. So talk to us a little bit about not wrestling for that long. Did you miss it right away, or was your body glad to have a little bit of a break? Because, I mean, you've been doing this quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, about 16 years altogether. So 15, 16 years altogether I've been doing this. It was hard, actually, because, my family loves going to the shows. I have a lot of friends. So I didn't see a lot of my friends for a long time. Except for doing like phone calls and video chats and stuff like that.
And yeah, one of the fun byproducts, because we had a live in studio show with this show back in those days, and then when it shut down, we got sent to Zoom. Unfortunately, Zoom became something of a staple in our lives now, and we're still able to do it wherever we are. So I would consider that to be one of the good things that might, if you can look at a good thing coming out of a horrible situation like that. When you got back in front of a live crowd, how did you feel about it? I mean, that moment when you came through the curtain, whether it was a 25% capacity or whatever it was, how did that feel?
Actually, if I remember correctly, POW came back in July, just before.
Oh, okay.
And we
this in Fox outside. Lake or Rumphol's? Where
neither, actually. It was Alibi Pub and Grub.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and we wrestled out in their parking lot, because they couldn't have people inside. And we probably wrestled, that was, God, I think around 75 to 100 people at that show. And it was the first one that I've heard of during the entire pandemic that even happened. So, and it was nice to hear those cheers and the claps and the oys and stuff like that. It was a real heartwarming experience. I'm not going to lie about that.
I feel exactly the same way. I had a very similar experience. Our first show back was an outside show as well, and the people came out in force, and it was safe, and it was just fun to be doing it again. 16 years, that's a long time to be in this sport. I work with Red every week, and Red is on his 20th. So, I've heard stories from the past ever since we started this show. Where did you start, and how did you get into it?
2001 is when I started. I graduated high school 2000. Was hanging out with this one of my buddies, who he was older than me, and he was wrestled for a company called POWW. He got hurt and had to leave for a while, and he never went back really, but he eventually got an itch to go back, so I went back with him. I mean, he was, let's see, I think he's about 6 years older than me. So I don't talk to them anymore, but He's the one that got me into it, and that was when they were going from PWI to PCW. That's where I met Jimmy Blaze, Dave Storm, Sonny Rogers, Rick Knight, a lot of guys.
God, PCW has tentacles, man. I mean, I hear weekly about the tentacles of Windy City. C-Red has met everybody and knows pretty much everybody from his days there. He's a legend. My first wrestling experience as a commentator was at PCW right at the end of its tenure. I came in as a commentator in October of that year at Grave Matters with the Nasty Boys. And I did the next 3 shows and then it was over. So that was my first experience in this business. So it's kind of funny how we all kind of, it's a community. And, I feel like that's one of the best byproducts of this business.
Yeah, that's very true. Because without Windy City, we wouldn't have had PWI. We wouldn't have had CCW, POW, CSW, SCW. None of it.
It was like the branches. It was a glorious tree, and the branches just spun out, and it's still thriving today. I mean, I get people here all the time that see Red, hey, Windy City, and they go on stories about how guys like me never would have made it in this business at that time, and I don't doubt that for a second, because it was a different era and it was a different time, and things were done a lot differently. Red, what do you know of Meathooks Obannon from that era?
From that era when he started, absolutely nothing.
But you know everything. You are like the grand wizard of knowledge.
Here's why, again. We were told, you worry about your own backyard. And like, so when I got in, like, we weren't allowed, to go to other shows, or, like, you would get a big chewing out, especially if you were
handed to you.
Yeah, if you were especially a rookie and you had somebody else's show, like, get ready for the ass chewing, get ready, whatever, you were gonna pay for it. So, excuse me. So I've always been the rebel. So it wasn't until PCW, Dream Night, that I said, fuck it. And that was because that particular night, the Road Warriors were on the card. And if anybody knows me, knows I'm a Road Warrior guy. And it was like, I'm going to see them live and in person. I don't give a damn. But I wasn't one of these guys who, for the lack of a better term, like, I stayed under the radar. I didn't say anything, I watched the show. The funny part is, I know there were people from like LWF and other companies, and they were in the stands where I were, and I could hear them like ragging on people and talking about people, just having a good time. But I made sure, and they knew who I was, but I was like, yeah, it's me. Okay, that's the end of it. Don't say nothing, whatever. But I was a rebel anyway. I don't know if Sam thought that was good or bad, but so when I first heard about Meathooks, of course it was at POW. And I'm like, me, so in Windy City, we had the Danny Boys, so, and the Danny Boys consisted of one Danny Boy who no longer is around. Actually, there were 3 of them, and 2 of them hit the bricks. But the one that we know is Sean Mulligan. So those were my Irish guys, you know. So then I see people talking about Meathooks. And I'm like, what kind of damn name is Meathooks? And then I thought about it. Right. Why? So that's what you know, when
bigger than your head, and your head is huge.
I was like, okay. But I'm like, he can't be, because think about it, you know, that's like tiny. Come on now. You know, it was like, okay, this guy's probably like 119, wet and soaked. I'm like, and you know, people got to remember, before the internet blew up, you know, there were just chat rooms. So there weren't
message boards.
Right, message boards and chat rooms. There
were
no
primetime pimp, right?
Right.
That's where PPP lived.
You know, so there was no pictures, you know. And his name kept coming up in different chats. And it was like, okay, who's this guy? I was lucky. I carpooled with somebody, and they were like, they were going to POW. And this was in the early days of POW. And I was like, okay. And I saw you. So then it dawned on me, okay, his name does fit his, you know, his physique. Okay, he's a big guy. But I'm like, how does he wrestle in a damn kilt? Like, like I would feel so uncomfortable. Like, but he did it, and it was like, okay. And I don't know if that was just that day, you know. I was like, but the guy's good, but he got killed on. Okay, and the more he wrestled, the more I forgot about the kill. And it just showed that his skill outweighed what I thought, you know, was something. And again, I get it. It's part of the gimmick. But for me, it was like, I had to put in 20 years a dress on one time. And that's only because that was part of the stipulation and the gimmick or whatever. If my team lost, I had to wear a dress for the next show.
It's not a dress.
Well, I get that, but I had, you know, like I felt uncomfortable.
You tell any Irish person or Scottish person it's a dress, they will whip your ass. You ought to know better than that.
Again.
And you're an SCW. Let's give him a reason to get pissed off.
Give who a reason?
Meathooks. He's POW. You're SCW. You just say he wears a dress.
How you think I'm SCW?
Oh, well, we'll talk about
also, C-Red's only a manager. So I wouldn't lay my hands on him, just like I've never laid my hands on you. Now, if you're a wrestler, you'll get both hooks.
Man, those are some big hooks too.
See, that's at SCW.
All right, well.
Clearly he hasn't been watching the show.
So Meathooks, you've I want to know who trained you and how that worked. The question is twofold. Where did you train? Who did you train with? And what was that moment where you saw something in this business where that would be the dogs being let out that I was talking about. So do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight. It'll be over soon. There you go. I like that. I like that spirit. Come on, C-Red. You got soul. I mean, you're a soul touchy. I imagine you have soul. Anywho, not only do I want to know where you trained, who you trained with, but I also want to know what that moment was in professional wrestling that you saw that you're like, well, I really think that I would like to do this, watch this, be part of this. Because I'm always interested to know what it took to get somebody into a lifestyle such as this.
Well, all right. When I first started in PWI, PCW, I was training under, that's where I signed my first contract. and I was with them till about 2005, 2006. And I trained there. Rick Knight every once in a while would have a training. Sonny Rogers, before he left, he trained once a week. And I went to 3 or 4 training sessions a week, and they had 6 or 7.
Wow.
Whiplash, Jared Priest, and Jay Phoenix, Sacrifice. You know, those were all the trainers there. And I would go to as many as I could.
So there's that moment in wrestling that everybody has where they saw something that they really enjoyed. They're like, you know what? I want to go see something independent. I want to be part of it. I can do it. Did you have a moment like that?
Not per se. My first show I went to for an independent promotion was PCW, PWI. And I saw Big Jack, John Burke.
John Burke.
Yep. And he was kind of like, and I'm a big guy now. I was way bigger then. I lost a lot of weight. He kind of made me like, well, he's a big guy. I could do this type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he got the cheers and stuff like that. And it was like, he didn't have to, he's a big guy. He didn't do much. But what he did, he was fucking exceptional at. And he got the crowd behind him. And that was kind of like, I could do this. And then I signed up with PCW, PWI.
That's interesting. I haven't heard a tale like that very often. Usually it's something on television that you see at a young age that drives you to the indies, but it sounds like you got inspired when you actually went to a show.
Oh, to join wrestling. Yes. I didn't know how to, this is back in 2000, 2001. I didn't know how to get in. So when I went to that show, it was, hey, you can do this. It's not, you know, I had to go below somebody to do it. They're like, give us money, you sign a contract, you can train, here you go. I was like, well, fuck, let's do it then. There's a picture of me when I was a wee little lad, sitting on top of, does anyone know who Cringer is?
Say it again.
Cringer? Of course.
I was like 4 or 5 years old. I was sitting on top of a blow-up Cringer in my parents' living room with the Thundercat sword. No, the Thundercat sword. Actually.
Oh, the Thundercat sword. You went from Cringer to the Thundercat sword. So you were watching a lot of TV.
All over the place. He was all over the place.
I was a kid. I was 8.
That's right. I thought you were going to raise it up and do the Power of Grayskull shtick.
No, but in the picture I have it raised up and I'm sitting there watching WrestleMania.
Oh, well, there you go.
Nice.
So you had a He-Man Thundercats WrestleMania experience. That's a lot of visceral experience right there. You got Cringer, who's Battle Cat. You got who's Lion-O. Lion-O is the Thundercat. And you got Andre versus Hogan. So that's a pretty nice little collection of characters, which makes sense because you're quite the character yourself. And, everything that Meathooks and the IPA do is very character driven, in my opinion. Before we go to the next question, I feel like it's important to welcome our good friend and the master of the 7K vision, Rion Skills.
What's up?
Very understated tonight. I had bigger plans.
Good evening, Mr. Skills.
We'll respect his anonymity, at least for this evening. So now you're POW. You're a fixture at POW. Every time I see a POW poster, for the most part, either you or IPA is featured somewhere on there. Talk to us a little bit about POW Entertainment.
Well, what can I say about POW Entertainment? I mean, they speak for themselves, really, when it comes down to it. Longest running promotion in Chicagoland, going on 20 years. I know, because November we'll have Wrestle Rage 20. So
it's a long time.
Yes.
Not many people, no promotion can say that I know of.
Yeah, I don't think even CSW can say that. I don't think they've been around quite that long.
No, CSW, again, you talked about it earlier. A lot of people don't get that there was a mass exodus part 2. And a lot of the Windy City guys, we were all there and we left. And outspawned Vanguard. And this, so Steve, you don't even know this. CSW started based off of one show that was done for benefit. And 2 people after the show said, wow, we can do this. We did this just as a benefit. We can do this on our own. And then birth CSW.
Now you're right. I did not know that.
So I was on the benefit show and I was in CSW. POW is the longest reigning now. How long has AAW been around? I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't know. If you're looking at me, I don't know.
I was looking at you.
Well,
and not because of your rugged chisel.
And I know they've got to, I know if POW's closed, then AAW's either got to be right behind them.
Well, we're going to let Meathooks' word be the law here.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, for the longest, we took pride. Windy City took pride. The doors were still open, but when the doors finally closed, we can't acknowledge Windy City Part 2 because it sucks. And yes, I'll say it to anybody's face. And the person that bought it, you're killing our legacy. Thanks a lot.
There you go. That's real.
Meathooks is 20 years with POW. Damn. And hell, I've been on my job for 20 years, and people look, how can you do that for 20 years? And then you sit back. I thought about it yesterday. I was like, 20 years is a long time. So for a company to go through, when you think about what we go through on a monthly basis of flyers and booking shows and venues, and
they're doing bi-monthly.
Right, so clearly POW was doing something that ain't nobody else doing. We need to figure out Jimmy Blaze's formula.
Yeah, so, I'm not at liberty to say nice things about POW, but I'm going to anyway for a moment, just to give some perspective. We were up at a show at Rumpholz in Twin Lakes, Wisconsin. And as much as I hated every single human being that was cheering for POW that night, every fan, every woman, child, every person dressed as a damn banana, every person that came off the short bus and bought a ticket to that show, it was an electric crowd. I mean, from the minute it started until the minute we got ushered out the front door in a mob scene situation, it was one of the hottest crowds I've ever had the chance to be in front of. And, I was glad to get out of there. The stench was too much, but, a little envious because it was a really great crowd. And that's what we all do this for. We want to be performers in front of a really great crowd. What's the secret? Do you know what POW's secret is if it's this good? If it's this good, just so you know.
Well, I got to give credit to where credit's due. I mean, it's just all the talent that's in the locker room. It's not just me. It's not just Jimmy Blaze. It's your IPAs. You got your Paulie Tomaselli, Hardcore Craig when he wrestles once in a while. Bow. Just
Josiah, very entertaining young man.
And you got Rough Crossing. Yabo when he comes in. It's only been a couple times. But he's always entertaining as hell to watch.
Solid locker room.
You guys know him, Vic Capri, Ice Pick.
Absolutely.
You know, you got electrifying talent with all those people.
It's a lot of great talent in spite of Chris Hedford, but we'll give you a pass on that because everybody has an ass hat in the locker room. I'm CSW's ass hat, so I can appreciate it. Let's get back to this POW SCW war. From your perspective, Meathooks Obannon and the IPA, there have been a lot of people that have said how it started. What is your perception of how this war began?
Well, the only thing I could think of is you guys had a mad dog in Ivan Madsen, right?
Right.
You know,
and the
no
family.
one could put the whole thing. You guys couldn't muzzle your pup, so to speak.
So Ivan Madsen, in your mind, is the Lee Harvey Oswald of this war. To put it in historical, he fired the shots. No.
He's the reason why the shots got fired, though.
Okay, so you're talking about that match between him and Spade that ended up him being wheeled into an ambulance and taken to medical facilities for the first time in his career, not able to walk off under his own power. Is that what you're speaking of?
It's the whole thing. I mean, you guys wanted to bring in someone that could leash the dog, so to speak. And so who'd you guys call? You didn't get someone bigger, but you got someone sure as shit a lot meaner. I mean, he's willing to do whatever it takes. And I've fought Spade a few times, and me and him do not get along in any degree of a human being. Me and him don't get along. We don't see eye to eye, nothing. I'd like to gouge his eyes out sometimes, but he tried that with me. And so now you unleashed your booking team unleashed a beast that they just couldn't control. I mean, and he just went off on a rampage like Scott Spade does.
Yeah, we don't really say that name here on this show. Kind of like Voldemort in Harry Potter, the name not spoken is that guy and his brood of misfits. And I'm speaking of Mistress Misery, who I called Mistress Mayhem, and took a kendo stick shot to the back for my trouble on that one. And then they've got, don't do that. And then they've got Tiny, who is, it's a funny colloquialism. I mean, he's not tiny at all. He's a giant human, but not the brightest guy. Kind of reminds me of Mice and Men, Spade and Tiny. Do you remember that? Ever read that book? Are you up on your Steinbeck?
Tell me about the rabbits, George. Yes! Yeah, I know.
Yes, that's it. Meathooks Obannon is a genius. He is a closet psychologist. He's the only one that got that reference. Nobody out there is going to. Red didn't get it. Well, Red, you're a teacher. You probably got it. No, 20 years as a teacher, you didn't get a Mice and Men reference. Where you been?
I teach special ed.
Oh well, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. But you got that. You know what it is. Yeah, Riyadh knows what it is. All right. Well, I'm gonna get slapped with a kendo stick for that one. That's for sure. We have seen Meathooks Obannon grace our presence in Shabance a couple of times, and you've developed quite a rivalry with your Irish SCW counterpart, the Irish Car Bomb, Sean Mulligan, and those have been some pretty spirited matches. Speak a little bit about those matches.
Well, I only wrestled them one time.
God, it seems like you've done it about 17 times.
Nope, just once.
Just once. It was a pretty impressive match. There was a bar in the ring, as I remember.
No, that was
the Mulligan's pub match.
That was, well, it wasn't really a match. I went out there just to talk. All I wanted to do was talk on that.
And I was out there to facilitate the talking, but it didn't work out very well for either of us.
Well, I still didn't lay my hands on you.
And you didn't, and I appreciate that, which is, like I said, you're the only person in that company that I like. Although you guys are having Axel Rico out there very soon, and I like him very much. So, maybe there are two people at POW that I enjoy. Talk a little bit about the tag team, the IPA. How did you two get together, and what makes it so successful for so long?
We don't clash. That's what makes it successful.
I mean, I see a T-shirt. I mean, are you repping the merch on your? There it is. You can go to a POW show and probably buy a shirt of that nature.
I like that.
Oh, you could. There's several different types of IPA merch.
Important. People say, Steve, why don't you have merch? And I answer very honestly because no one's going to buy it. That's a good point. But anyway, Rion, how about you? You got here a little late. We're talking to the Meathooks Obannon, longtime POW athlete, 16 years in this business. You've been in this business a long time. Do you have a question for Mr. Obannon here? He's taking time out of his busy schedule to join us here tonight on C Red's Power Hour with Steve Aaron in 7K Rion Vision. Copyrighted. There's a C.
Forgive me for asking this, but as far as because I know you've been in tag team for a while. I actually wanted to ask this because I actually saw you at Nightmare on Chicago Street. It's right before the pandemic, over in Elgin. Joey Roth was there. There was stuff with Espanguli. I wasn't sure if it was you. I wanted to just ask you a couple questions because I've seen your work, but I also don't know everything prior to when I've seen you. I started watching around 17, 18, like 2017, okay. 18. But based on what you just told me, you've been around for much, much longer. And as I was walking the door, you mentioned as far as PCW stuff, because I was on the way, and this happened. This is what I've learned, is that a lot of guys that started with PCW, I had came in when everyone was on their way out.
As did I. Did we kill it? Did we kill PCW?
Oh, I was there for years.
He was there way before that.
I was there for a cup of coffee.
Oh yeah,
I killed it.
I was there
maybe
for years. It's just so I guess my first question, I guess, is as far as the difference between POW and PWI. Is there anything? Because a lot of the guys moved over from. Did the mentality change? Or was it more so same mentality, just more incorporated? I hope that makes sense. I really hope that makes sense.
It does. And I'm going to tell you why I jumped ship from PCW.
Ooh,
all right. And I went from PCW to CCW, which is the first iteration.
That was going to be my next question. Was it a complete shift from here to POW? Was it? Because I remember there was a 3-company split. I believe it was 3. PCW, CCW, AEW. Yeah. It was 3. It was 3 at one point. It was AEW, CCW, and PCW.
Yep.
Because I came in around the time that Jim Jesus was on his way out, and I was just training, but I was also wrestling other spots. But just the lore of how everything went down, it was just people talk about it, people know about it, but no one really knows what happened. And that but everyone has good stories about it, and it's something that's always intriguing because I've heard it from all sides of the fence.
Hey, we like stories on this show.
So that I guess that's my one thing. The mentality as far as the guys that have left, did it stay the same mentality once they left, or did it change being on the other side of the fence?
Well, okay, when I was at PCW and people that defend PCW and all that fun stuff now, when I was there 2001 to 2005-06.
Okay.
All right. It was.
So you literally we missed each other.
Yeah.
Literally yeah. Okay. All right.
Because in 2005, 2006, during that, I went to CCW.
Okay. All right.
And what pushed me over the edge was, all right, one, I trained there for 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I saw 3 matches, which I'm not upset about that in the least. All right. I get it. You had a bunch of talent at PCW. You really did.
They were stacked. At that time, they were stacked.
Oh yeah, those cards were always stacked.
Yeah.
And they would always bring in outside talent. Ric Flair, Bret Hart, Dusty Rhodes. all that fun stuff. In which Dusty Rhodes, God rest his soul, was amazing in that locker room, by the way.
I'm mad I missed that one.
Everybody's making me miss that one.
I'll tell you what, he sat there, talked with, he came in and he was part of a dream night, and he was going to be a part of a 6-man.
Okay.
All right. And it was Styling Shane Eaton, Rick Rocket, who I debuted against, and Dusty Rhodes. That was the 3 men on one side. Okay. Then it was your Southern Rednecks and one other person. I can't remember who that was. It wasn't important. Dusty took every green guy in that locker room and talked with us for like the entire night. He talked about the match for about 5 minutes.
That's cool. Like,
and then just went over to where all the green guys were that were working and going, so listen here, baby. How's everyone doing tonight and stuff like that, baby? How we all doing tonight? And he just sat there and just bullshitted with us for hours.
A lot of the old school guys did. A lot of the 70s and 80s guys did that. I learned that fairly quickly going there.
So now here's crazy. I was there again at Dream Night. Not supposed to be, but I was there.
He was quite the renegade.
Dude.
Okay, if you remember that match, do you remember that match, C-Red?
Bro, I barely can remember what I ate this morning.
It was a tough morning, though.
That's a maybe. Maybe if you walk him through
it. So yeah, if you walk me through it. But here was the one thing I do remember about that night is walking in. And at that time, I had no problem traveling by myself. I would, because again, I'm a renegade. Ain't nobody supposed to know going to the show. So I just go and I park and I walk into the venue. And as I'm walking, like there are people outside that I know. And they're like, well, what are you doing here? I said, I'm doing like you doing. Paying to see wrestling. Like,
we don't talk about it.
Right. But I've always been one of the people like, you can't ask me, like, there's an old joke. What would you do if you see a pastor in a whorehouse? Well, clearly you're doing the same thing I'm doing. So just let it be.
You're right.
But I walk in
the name of Jesus. That's what he's doing.
So I walk in and I pay my money, and then I see this super long line. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, is this the line for seats? What the hell? And I stood there because nobody was saying anything. And finally, I like kind of moved my head a little bit, and I saw Dusty Rhodes. And I said, oh, hell, this is the line to meet Dusty Rhodes. I'm going to stand in this line.
How much was it?
Hey, it didn't matter. It was just the fact, like Meathooks said, I could see him in the back talking to the boys. That's the same way he was talking to the fans. Like he wasn't sign an autograph, take a picture, next, get out the way. He was like, hey, baby, how you doing, baby? It's nice to meet you. And it was like, bruh, the show is starting. Like, and it was like, you're not going to rush Dusty Rhodes.
No.
Nope.
And the line he had, you're not going to kill his money. So I just got out of line and went and sat down in the bleachers. I was like, hopefully he come back out. And it was crazy. Wasn't Chris Sabin there that night?
That was the other guy.
There we go.
Chris Sabin. And you know how I remember that? Because there's this so long ass line for Dusty, right?
And nothing for nobody.
And Sabin sat right next to Dusty. and there's nobody in line for Saban. Like nobody. Well, nobody knew who he was at the point at that time, you know. But it was just like, damn, I feel bad for you.
He didn't
and like he was just sitting at the table and he was like
I don't even think he was known as Chris Saban then. That's the thing.
Well, it might have not been his name, but eventually he would become Chris Saban. But I remember it because I was like, I've seen you somewhere, can't remember where. And then later on, you know, Chris Saban blew up and it was like, oh, okay, I know that guy. That was the guy that nobody wanted a damn autograph or a picture with. So
you ever notice that when somebody talks about an experience with Dusty Rhodes, they immediately go into the Dusty Rhodes impression?
Supposed to do
that.
Do you have a Dusty Rhodes impression?
No,
come on. You have to have one.
I have to meet him in order to do that.
Well, that's a little difficult at this point.
I know. I don't have it.
Listen, baby, listen. Dusty Rhodes, baby, listen.
Oh man, to hear him talk for the 5 minutes about that match was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my damn life. Oh, I don't want to give nothing away, you know what I'm saying? But
well,
it was
fine. It's fine.
It was. The funniest thing about it was he said he was wearing cowboy boots. He didn't have normal ring boots. All right, he only had his cowboy boots, and he was like, "Look, if I fall down, you're all falling with me, okay?"
I've heard this story.
It's all connected. All universes.
You're all slipping and falling with me. And he wouldn't say like, "Oh, I'm gonna give you a punch or a jab or an elbow." It's, "I'm gonna give you a hoobity. I'm gonna give you a couple of hoobities and then the habla."
He's covering with the fisties. That was always my favorite. When you look back at moments like that, oh, go ahead. There's more. That's good.
There's another part.
Hey, we're here for the duration. I would never.
No, actually, I'm gonna go back to Rion's to finish Rion's question. All right, because we got totally sidetracked and segued now. I apologize about that.
It's totally fine.
But the mentality over there and what made me change was it was always about. I was a student. I paid my money. I was paying my monthly to get trained and stuff like that, except for when the school shut down. When they lost their school in Elk Grove, we didn't have to pay the dues anymore. And I'd already paid my contract up front.
Right. Okay.
$2,500 cash right up front. Boom. There you go. There's my money. Teach me how to do this. And they lost the school after a few years. And after about a year, I was like, all right, cool. And it was in Chicago Ridge in Rick Knight's house. They built a shed, a big she shed, and put a real low, like maybe 6 to 8 inches off the ground.
Maybe a foot. Maybe.
Don't be 380 pounds bumping in it because you bounced off the concrete. Trust me, I know.
Yikes.
And I was like, and the trainings just were not the same. It was all just me.
Mm-hmm.
There was no, hey, this is a group, let's get back to it.
Right.
So I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I was living in a place in Elk Grove at that point in time.
Okay.
And Jimmy Blaze literally lived in the complex next door.
That's how it starts.
Well, I knew Jimmy Blaze.
Mr. Rogers syndrome. Hello, neighbor.
Well, I knew Jimmy Blaze from when he was exiting PCW, PWI. So I talked with him. I was like, look, Jimmy, I don't. What do you have any suggestions? He's like, well, I run a school. I run CCW. Me and my not brother-in-law, half brother.
Okay. All right.
Dave Storm owned CCW. So I was like, well,
All right, let me. Can I, can I come see what you guys are all about?
Mm-hmm.
I went to a training session. I paid him $50 just to see for the day and train with the guys and stuff like that, and got hooked. And I was like, all right, and then he was like, all right, well, I'll set you up a meeting with Dave Storm. Okay. Now here's where contract number 2 comes in. Now they saw that I was already trained and I was able to take the bumps and do the moves and stuff like that.
Right.
And Dave was like, all right, well, you're already trained, so I'll tell you what, our normal is $2,500. How about $1,500? I was like, take my money.
Right. You can have a spot to work with. Yeah, I get that.
And they had an actual school, like they were in a building,
right,
and all that fun stuff. And the mentality over there was much different. Now, well, I say there was egos. There's always egos.
Anywhere you go,
no matter where you go, there's going to be egos. But the egos over there were a different kind of ego. It wasn't just, well, let me get my shit in type of ego. It was we're going to get our shit in.
Okay. You work with me, you work at, we are going to do this. Okay, I got you.
And it was like the whole company as a whole ego, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it was very different. And I really enjoyed that.
Okay.
Then I was with them until about 2008.
Okay. All right.
And then I got hurt and had to get work done on my ribs.
Okay.
Hey! So how did you wind up at POW?
Grace of God. No, quite literally, it's grace of God.
How bad was that injury?
Well, here's the thing. When I had to have 3 surgeries on my ribs, because I didn't just break some ribs, I shattered my ribs.
Okay.
Wow.
So, and
whenever
just by
hitting someone say grace of God, I'm like, okay, how bad was it? That because it's not like, oh, I stumbled in, and when I hear that part, I'm like, what the hell just happened? Okay, but go.
But so I shattered 4 ribs on my side. Okay, and I still have plastic on my ribs to hold some of them together,
right?
Just to brace them.
Mm-hmm.
So, doctor said, after it was 4 years worth of healing, surgery, healing. Okay. And the doctor was like, you're cleared to go back if you want to, but CCW was gone. The number I called,
right,
no longer the same number. And they had become POW. And this is where the grace of God part comes in. Now, I own a motorcycle. I'm an avid rider. Okay. I'm out riding my bike. I'm actually, me and my girl we were going to go we're going to a pumpkin patch to meet up with some friends. They got kids, pumpkin patch. All right, fine, not a problem. So we go and stop to see her oldest daughter because her oldest daughter was out to breakfast with her friends at a place in Wooddale called Bentley's Pancake House. And I'm sitting outside. She goes inside, talk to her daughter. I'm sitting outside on my bike, and here comes a little Chevy Equinox pulls right in front of my bike. And out comes a guy, long blonde ponytail hair. And he's sitting there eyeballing the shit out of my bike. And he just walks up and he goes, that's a real nice bike. Now, I'm completely unrecognizable all the time. Because back when I was in CCW and I was...
That's time to dance.
It's
time to dance.
We're
gonna dance.
The story was getting really good.
We're gonna.
And then this happened over here.
Yeah, we're gonna go try to deal with that. I might have to kill him.
Oh, don't kill the dog. It's fine. Dogs bark.
Is that when you had the mullet chops?
Okay, there we go. All right.
No, I only had the line.
Okay.
But when he saw me, now I had like...
How you doing?
Max Holliday's beard wasn't as big as mine was. I had the big biker down to the end of my chest beard. Right? And he didn't know. And back when I was in CCW and PCW, I was Mike Obannon.
Okay.
Meathooks. When I was joining CCW, it was Mike Meathooks Obannon. At PWI, it was Mike Obannon. Okay. Now, when I came back, it just Meathooks. Fuck the mic. But I'm sitting on my bike, and he walks up and he goes, I got big 16-inch ape hangers. I got a big road tank, Harley Davidson road tank, all chromed out, like lots of chrome. And he's like, "That's a really nice bike." I'm like, "Hi, Jimmy Blaze." And he was like, "Do I know you?" And I was like, "I, Meathooks Obannon." And he was like, and he just, it took like 1 second for it to register what the hell I just said. And boom, and me and him talked for about 45 minutes outside of a pancake shop. He said, "Hey, I got a show this Saturday. Why don't you come up? You know, we'll comp you. Come on in, meet some of the boys, you know, all that fun stuff." So I did. And that's the end of that story, because I don't look back, only forward now, because that was when I joined POW.
And that is the perfect segue into the next bit. What does the future hold for one Meathooks Obannon in the IPA? What are you interested in doing? Who do you want to fight, and where do you want to fight?
Well, me and my brothers, we'll fight anybody, anytime, anywhere.
Will you fight the CTW Tag Team Champions, the ARC, featuring Willie DeBomb Richardson and Rion Skills?
I would.
That'd be a hell of a match. And I'm general manager of that company, so I might try to make that happen. I'd like to see it.
Actually, funny story about Willie DeBomb Richardson and SCW. You want to hear it?
I do.
There was a time, right? The world was starting to open up. And Jimmy calls me going, "Hey, my buddy Jeff might need a guy on Saturday. Are you available? Needs a big guy." I said, "Yeah, sure. What for?" Well, Willie DeBomb Richardson was double booked. He didn't know if he'd make it on time. So I go to Shaban's and get there, get all dressed up, put my kilt on and everything, all taped up, because literally we're 5 minutes from the match.
Okay.
And so Hunter called me up going, "Hey, I need a guy in case Willie doesn't show up. Can you come?" I can come. Not a problem. And now I didn't get to debut at SCW because 5 minutes before the match, Willie DeBomb shows up. So they switched him on the next match. So I've been to SCW before. Just no one ever saw me.
I blame C Red for that one. That sounds like ARC booking to me.
First of all, that ain't ARC booking. That's just Willie being Willie.
Willie trying to get that money. Can't blame him for trying to make money. Getting, you know.
No, can't blame him.
I don't blame him, but
I didn't mean to offend you.
They are the tag team champions. But 5 minutes, yeah, that sounds like Willie. You know, like, hey, okay, because I'm sure he probably spent at least a half hour after the match. He was probably on first, spent a half hour after the match going, too old for this shit.
It takes Willie an
now
hour
I gotta
and 20 minutes to at the end of a show.
Now I gotta drive to Shaban's. And I'm glad I wasn't in the car, you know, so trust me.
Yeah, we know about you and Willie in cars. That story is very popular in these parts.
You know, hey, it wasn't always pretty.
Meathooks Obannon, you have been a fantastic guest tonight, and the stories you tell are exactly what we wanted on this show, because you made us all forget about our problems for a little while, and good storytellers often do. So we'll have to have you back on. I think I'd like to have IPA on here.
I was going to ask.
Do a tag team.
That might be a little tough. Might be. Because mind you, my tag team partner, Kevin O'Reilly, he lives in the UP of Michigan.
So we'd have to account for daylight savings time and the time zones of the United States. I'll work on that. We'll find a way to orchestrate that, because I think that would be a hell of a show. Meathooks, you have been great tonight, and you have made me feel better, and I appreciate that personally. We're going to do a quick little thing to Jake before we head out for the evening. Do you want to sit and watch, or do you want to go? I'll leave it entirely up to you, my friend.
Oh, I have no problem sitting watching. I'd like to learn more about this man. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, some guests do, some guests don't. Meathooks Obannon is the only person at POW Entertainment that is worth a darn, in my opinion. So congratulations on being a good human. I'm going to let Rion go first. At this point, you were late, so you're going first. And you know him. You introduced me to Jake, so I feel like it's only right. So we'll go you, and then we'll go Red, and then we'll go me, and then we'll go home. We just can't get that dog to shut up. Just can't do it. It looks like it's time for a bark collar. No, that's inhumane. We won't do that. I'll just kill my children. That's even more inhumane. We won't do that either. Very conflicted right now. But anyway, we lost a dear friend last night, and it has affected all of us in many ways. So we're going to start with Rion Skills, and we're going to have him tell a story about our good friend, who is a man that was known by many names: Jake H. Schmitt, manager extraordinaire, Jake Henry, referee extraordinaire, and the American royalty, Jake Adams, who we just saw him engaged in a match against AJ Flyer about 10 days ago. So, Rion, why don't you start off with a little storytelling and tell me a memory? Tell me something about this man. Gone too soon.
Okay. What do you want to know?
Anything you might want to share. An experience.
Literally be anything.
And he was the Swiss Army knife. He could do it all. So, tell us anything you want to say. Show some love. Anything that makes you happy. Anything that makes you feel good. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make everybody feel just a little bit better tonight.
Okay. I'll go with an old story.
Well, we like the old stories. I mean, that's basically the entire bag of C-Red's repertoire.
Because you're old.
We still love you, C-Red.
We do love you, C-Red. That's why we changed the name of the show to C-Red's Power Hour, because we had to give him that respect.
Gonna change that graphic too.
Now I got a new graphic coming soon. Had some help designing it, so it should be great. Go ahead, Rion. Delight us with your tales of the old days.
Okay. When I started wrestling, I was, I want to say 20, 23, 24, 20, somewhere around. Well, it was August 13, 2003 was my first training day. September 29th, 2003 was my first actual match. August 27th, 2003 was when Jake made his debut in said company as an announcer. And the booker at the time thought it'd be really cool to have us go back and forth. Because they just wanted some of the rookies just kind of chat. But the moment that he was able to get into an interview position, he wanted to do more. He wanted to train. And then they gave him a faction because of us going back and forth by the name of the Second City Crew. None of them are around anymore. But Jake, the entire thing was we were supposed to have this feud where I would go through these three guys to get a chance at Jake, because at the time that I had started wrestling, I had broken or fractured this bone here. It was a hairline fracture. So I had started wrestling for maybe two to 3 months, got put in a soft cast, was still training, and was dealing with trying to cut this promo with Jake, because they went and said, well, he already has his cast on. We'll just send an African after you. I said, what? what do you mean by an African? He's like, don't worry about it. We'll just it'll make sense as we go through. And Jake is listening to this, and he's like, you want me to send an African after the black dude? And I was like, I'm in the same boat as you, Jake. I don't even know if how this is gonna play out. So they send this guy by the name of Akeem Ali, who ironically is a chairman of the board over in Gary, Indiana now. The idea was that I had to get through this African to then fight, to have the chance to fight Jake. So it went for a couple months, and it went until May, and I was able to finally get this match with Jake. But I had to train him at the same time. And only thing he could do was speak. He didn't do any bumps. He didn't do anything of the sort. So I had to just wing a lot of stuff.
This sounds entirely too familiar.
More than you realize, sir, which is why I keep telling you, shut the fuck up. So whenever I had to deal with Jake, I was like, okay, I just need you to stand here. Because I was like, if I can get you to punch, we can work this out. So we start working out a match. And I had to make it last like 3 minutes. Because I was supposed to get 5 minutes in the ring with him, but it's like other entities are supposed to come in. So as I'm trying to work with Jake, this is like his first like match. And he comes in and he wears suspenders. He brings suspenders into the ring, but he has a belt. So he just got these suspenders and a belt, but the suspenders are being held on by said belt, not by the pants, by the belt. So we thought it'd be funny, just pulling them. Like funny, haha, like in the middle of me giving him heat, because he would have jumped me. So I'm like, okay, I'll just pull the suspenders and then eventually pull them down, do a chop, and then come back over, and then we take it home. He's like, well, throw some punches in first. I said, I don't think you want me to do that, because we hadn't worked that part out. So he was like, well, no, it's fine. I'll be able to take it. So what I did was I started off here on the side. And his thing is he wanted to roll with said punches. So he got all excited. But as he's rolling and I'm doing this, he rolls his head into said punch. And now he's loopy for the rest of the time. So I have to now bring him back to where he needs to be. So now I have to like start hitting him for real to check to make sure, dude, are you okay? All right, well, I guess just come over here. So I start doing the suspenders. And he was fine the first time because he sold it, and then everybody laughed, funny, ha. And we went to go do it again, and he moved. And right as I tried to pull said suspenders, when he moved out of the way, the first one unlatched and it wrapped around his neck. So now,
oh boy,
just dealing with this one latch, and then in the process of him trying to get the one off, the other one started to go back and forth, and I was like, "Well, we can't beat this. Let's just take it home."
Oh, those are the best.
I did a tornado DDT, like or I guess it would be the Rock's tornado DDT, coming off the ropes and spinning around. And yeah, I did that to end the match. And then everybody hoisted me on their shoulders. It was like, hey, you finally beat him, man. Meanwhile, Jake is still choking. His suspenders on his neck. And we get to the back. I'm like, dude, are you all right? He was like, I don't remember anything that happened, but it felt awesome. I was like, okay, at least you're here now. At least get you from there. And it's been a lot of that. Like he has interwoven into my like career, if you want to call it that. But he's always been like around. And a lot of times it's normally me laying down for him, believe it or not. Like that's just kind of how it worked out. I don't have anything. I mean, I do, but you guys can start saying stuff now. I have plenty of stuff.
That was a good story, and it had a nice amount of comedy, which I like, especially in this time. C Red, you're up. Which version are you speaking of? Are you speaking of the ref, the manager, the wrestler, the ring
announcer? The first time I met Jake, IUWA, was that the name of it? Rhea? IUWA.
It was the Independent Urban Wrestling Alliance. Then it switched over to UWA, to where it was the Universal Wrestling Alliance. And then it switched back to IUWA. And I forget what it was called at that point. But yeah. One of those.
Now it's PRW.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the first time I met him, Jake is the most humblest person I've like. Again, he knew me, and instantly he walks over. He was like, "How you doing, Mr. C Red? I'm Jake. I just want to introduce And for me, I'm like, okay, I'm just C Red. Like
he did like the star, I see.
Like I'm not. I was brought in talent, but I didn't feel like I'm on that level where it was like I'm some big superstar. No, I'm just C Red. My greatest memory is LOW. And Paul Hall Center and the owner Booker tells me I at that time am the tag champ and the league champ. And he tells me, you're dropping the league tonight. And I'm like, to who? Like, who the hell in this locker room am I dropping the damn league to? And he's like, you dropping it to Jake. Oh, okay, no problem. Jake tells me he's got a bad shoulder. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, bro, how we gonna get through this match and you got a bum shoulder? And I remember,
froze for a moment.
If Rion remembers, there were these couches that you really didn't want to sit on in the back. But if you didn't have a chair, you pretty much didn't, like, there was nowhere else to sit.
Park them couches.
And and I can remember Jake putting on his tape, and Jake was like, I'm kind of nervous, man. And I'm like, why? He was like, I just want to do good. I'm like, Jake, you'll be fine. We're going to go out there. We're going to entertain the crowd. That's what I do. I'm not sitting up here trying to put on a 5-star match, Jake. Match is over. And I didn't tell Jake I was going to do this. So I instantly, Jake goes over. I instantly go heel. Snatch the belt. Like, arguing with the ref. But then I hand it to Jake. And I can see as I'm handing it to Jake, he's starting to tear up and he's starting to cry. And I realized at that point, it meant the world to him to now be a title holder in said company. And I gave him his moment, went to the back, and I'm sitting down, and he comes in and like he drops the belt and gives me this hug. And it was like, bro, this is what we do. This is what we do, you know. Over the years, it's funny. Rion said him they're like that. Then I guess I'm the opposite because then me and Jake were like this on the other opposite end because Jake always found a way to be wherever I was. Mm-hmm. Even down to 2 weeks ago, double shotting, you know, Saturday and Sunday. And we were talking before crash tested, and it was like we hadn't missed a beat. And like we were just talking about, we spent at least an hour talking about Under Armour and the Project Rock because we both had on Project Rock shoes. And like, I'm like, okay, like this is awkward because anybody else, either you don't know what we're talking about or you're going to think we're complete marks for the Rock. And we were like, man, these, like, we 20 minutes on how damn comfortable the damn shoes are. Like we're in a debate about color and the foam inside the shoe. And it was like, I can't do that. I couldn't do that with too many people. They wouldn't get it, you know. Jake was just an all around awesome guy. Not one bad thing ever. I've seen him mad probably one time out of all the years I've known him. That night it was justified. But outside of that, I love that dude. The world is the world feels a little more empty right now. You know, but like I said, it shows us to make sure we love each other. You know, we you know, let me shoot. You know, we have these wars and everybody works for wherever they work. At the end of the day, this is a brotherhood. I will always see it that way. This, you know, a brotherhood, a fraternity, whatever you want to call it. And all my brothers should know I am there for you. I hope you're there for me. I love everybody. If I speak to you every week, if I speak to you once a month, or if I speak to you once a year, I still love you. So again, to everybody that is present on this screen right now, Meathooks, Steve, Rion, I love you. I am always here if you need me. And I love you guys.
That is a hell of a story. Two great stories from guys that have been in this business a long, long time. I haven't been in this business nearly as long, but I do have one Jake story that I'll share. Right before the pandemic, I was doing a little training in the Dalton facility at IPW. I had just had a beer championship match against Sean Danger, and I drank his piss, and it was a bad situation for me. But the promoter at that time said, well, we could do some other things for you. Why don't you come to the facility and let's teach you some stuff. So, much like Jake did with Rion, back in the day, I went to Dalton in the middle of the night, and in the building was Jake and the promoter guy. And Sean Danger was often there as well. See Red's favorite fella. And I got to learn with Jake in the ring how to do some things. And the whole point of it was that at IPW, we were eventually going to be a tag team. So it was the Streamwood event right before the pandemic shut everything down. And it was my first time or my second time working at IPW. I mean, I had drank piss, so I was hoping for better tidings the second time around. And Jake had a match, and Jake did not do well in his match. He ended up taking the loss, but I came out and had words, and, he and I got into it with his opponent, and I got to deliver a headbutt. I got to do a couple of splashes, and, we had set ourselves up to be, an up and coming tag team. And I was going to continue to work, at that facility, and, who knows where it would have gone. Then the pandemic shuts it all down. And it, I kind of lost touch with Jake, but I loved working with him because no matter how slow or bad or clumsy or awkward that I was, the guys that were training me gave me a lot of room and gave me a lot of praise for the good things I did. And it instead of knocking me down, it built me up a little bit. And, Jake pulled me aside at the end of one training session. And he says, listen, I know just what you're going through. I know what you want, and I can help you. And I'm going to, you're not going to have to do very much right away until you learn. I'm going to carry the load. And I always appreciated that because, that I had my wrestling moment, and it took me a long time to get here. But I made that journey anyway. And he was willing to be the guy to work with the new guy that's an old man. So the pandemic comes and goes, and, Jake stepped away for a little while, whether it be injury. I'm not exactly sure why he stepped away, but he did. And then lo and behold, he returned fairly recently. Watched him at Rocket do a couple of referee things. And then 10 days ago at IPW, he got the heel reaction of the night. The crowd hated him, and he fed off of that, and he was fantastic. And after it was over, I got to watch him interact with his kids. And, I went up to him and I said, man, that was awesome. And he's like, hey, did you forget about our tag team stuff, right? And I'm like, no, I never forgot about it. He says, we need to still do that. Let's talk to the people in charge, and let's make that finally happen. We've waited a long time. And that was the last time I talked to Jake. Unfortunately, I'm left with what might have been. But I love the fact that he embraced me for all of my faults, shortcomings, and lack of experience, and wanted to build me up and not knock me down. And the 8 years I've been in this business, I have been knocked down way more than I've been built up. So when I hear the term paying dues, I've paid plenty. But Jake was one of those guys, along with the guys that were running IPW at the time, that wanted to see me succeed. And, I'll always be grateful to Jake for wanting to build me up. And I will regret every day that I go forward that I didn't get to be in that tag team with him, because that would have meant the world to me. And I think he was really ready to enjoy it as well. So that's my Jake story, the Swiss Army knife of wrestling. He could do it all, and he gave me a little bit of his shine, and I'll never forget him for it. So we usually have the Power Hour drinking game. We're not doing it tonight, even though Red said the funny part a couple of times. We're going to have one drink. So gentlemen, raise your glasses or your thermoses or whatever you might have by you. This is to Jake. You affected each of us in one way or another, and you affected everybody because we have seen the outpouring on social media today. You are a great man. You are gone too soon. And wherever you are right now, I hope you have found peace because you more than deserve it. Here's to Jake. I'm going to give one more thing to Meathooks. You've been in this business 16 years, and I'm sure you've lost people that you've known along the way. What has your experience with that, and what advice can you offer anybody that's grieving right now about their lost friend? Because I could use it.
Actually, just recently, I don't know if you heard, Powell put on a benefit show for a gentleman named Matt Broderick. Longtime wrestler, longtime friend. I met him back in PCW days as he was a fan. And just the only thing that I can say about it is don't grieve for the loss. Try not to grieve for loss. But try to remember the love. You know, that's what helped get me through losing him, losing up in Michigan, one of our longtime fans who has special needs. He passed away due to complications of COVID. It was the love that they had. You know, you always remember the love that they had for you. And realize that they're not gone because you have them here. And you'll always carry that love with you. So that's what always seemed to help me through. And I've done that ever since I was a little kid when I first experienced any kind of loss with my great grandmother. So that's what my parents taught me. And that's what I've held on to through 40 years. So, you know, I don't try and grieve for the loss of them. I try and grieve for the love of them.
Well, that's the best advice I think we may have ever had on this show. And I'm going to let this show end with that sage advice. Meathooks, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule tonight and making us all feel a little bit better in the face of some adversity. You have been a godsend and you have been a treasure, and we'll look forward to having you back on this program very soon.
Anytime, Steve. Thank you so much for having me tonight, Mr. Skills. Thank you for your questions. I'll gladly, Mr. Red. Again, congratulations to your daughter for making it to college and studying psychology. Amazing. And again, thank you guys for having me so much. And anytime you guys want me on, just let me know.
Man, how is this guy Powell? He's so fucking cool to be a member of that locker room. It's unbelievable. Don't miss next week's episode. It will be C-Red, Rion Skills, and me, and our guests will be all of the fabulous idols as we prepare for May 14th at Rocket Pro Wrestling Kicks on 66 as we end the season and go away until September. I want to tell you tonight that I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you all for enriching our lives and letting us come to you every Tuesday night and watching our little podcast. We appreciate that very much. And even though we don't get to say it all the time, we do love each and everybody that supports us in what we do. Tonight, when this show is shared on the social media, it will be shared by Rion Skills and C-Red because Gunner Brave's dad reported me for saying I was going to burn down Gunner like a candle, Seth Rollins style. So now I'm on a 30-day hiatus from Facebook. So it just keeps getting better and better. So Rion will share it, C-Red will share it, and I'll see you sometime in June. But check me out on Instagram and Twitter because at this point, that's all I have left. And I can't do TikTok like C-Red, so I just choose not to. On behalf of the urban sensation C-Red, the real deal Rion Skills, and the genuinely awesome person that is Meathooks Obannon, I am Steve. We will see you next week on the Power Hour. And hug your people tonight, man, because like Red said, you just don't know. Good night, everybody.